from around the world to our democracy and opportunity for humanity. Today, we'll be featuring speakers from Germany, Australia, France, Canada, and the United States, sharing this global call for a future of freedom for all around the world. It's such an honor to be here with all of you. We know this morning President Joe Biden opened this conference in Washington, D.C. We know different leaders from around the world have joined in, but what we know even more importantly is that civil society has come together to say, this is what we want. We, civil society, are the oxygen. We are the organizing movement to make sure that democracy moves from paper to reality in people's lives. And so it's great to have this event in Southeast Asia, especially on the eve of when Cambodia will become the new ASEAN chair. And we know, of course, the challenges in ASEAN. If we look around the region, we can't allow, with a global call for democracy, to forget ASEAN. We must work together to make sure that ASEAN fits into that puzzle of the global paradigm for a positive future for the people of Southeast Asia. We know we cannot forget, and we know more importantly, it must forge a future of fundamental freedoms for all. I will hand it over first to our speaker, Bounthone Chanthalavong Wiese, who will be speaking to us live from Germany. And we'd also like to congratulate Bounthone, as we know you transitioned in Germany to a new head of state, and Angela Merkel just peacefully moved on after 16 years, and your new leader, Olaf, is now the new head of state. And of course, that's just a symbol of democracy and how it works, the peaceful transfer, not one party in power for decades at a time. So Bounthone, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joshua. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants in the Summit for Democracy, my name is Dr. Bounthone Chanthalavong Wiese. I am the president of the Alliance for Democracy in Laos. We, the Alliance for Democracy in Laos, ADL, welcome the organization with associated goal of the Democracy Summit. We see that event is a door opener to strengthen democracy in the world and to make the world a place with more freedom and human rights. As our name suggests, our organization stands for the change from a dictatorship to a democracy, especially in Laos, but also for other countries. As a worldwide network of human rights and democracy activists for Laos, the ADL works closely with the governments of the democratic country and the human rights organ of the United Nations. We would like to draw your attention to the region in Southeast Asia. The tender beginnings of democracy must urgently to strengthen in this region, and the remaining dictatorship must be peacefully transformed into sustainable democracies. This is the only way to guarantee stability and peace. Why do we believe that the problem in Laos must be taken particularly seriously? We have proven several times in recent years that the small country of Laos is by no means insignificant. On the contrary, Laos is one of the five remaining communist countries in the world. Laos is a country without any freedom. There is no freedom of assembly, no freedom of association, except the communist organization, and no freedom of expression in every form. In the last years, the freedom of expression has been more restricted by some degrees to control the internet, especially the social medias. The main problem of the Lao PDR, in addition to the dictatorship, is the massive corruption in every stage of the administrations. Laos depends first and foremost by Vietnam, particularly military and politically. And secondary, the flows by China. The government of Laos, of Lao PDR, made long-term land lease for 99 years in many provinces with China, populated by 100,000 of Chinese people with their own administration. This is a new kind of colonialism. Basically, it should be noted that the human rights situation in Laos is deteriorating more and more dramatically. Every critique now is a decriticization of the system. So dissidents are sentenced up to 20 years in prison. Over Laos, their dictatorship are trying to curb the influence of Western democracies, above all the USA. The restrictions on the population are increasing. It's starting with the lack of all freedom rights to increasing control of the population. Even international recognized NGOs such as Amnesty International or Greenpeace are not allowed to operate in Laos. On the other hand, government-dependent organizations from dictatorial countries, so-called Congo, are permitted by many democratic countries and can operate freely there. More about this a moment. Since the influence of this dictatorship on Laos is too great, the protest of the population is not enough to change the situation. Support from abroad is urgently needed there. Only with active support from abroad will it be possible to realize freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and all other freedoms that are no natural in Western democracies. Laos must be transformed from a one-party dictatorship to a democracy with a multi-party system. But how can Western democracies support such a process? At the moment, the only possibility is to support human rights organizations and organizations that stand for the building of democracy. If possible, also financially. This also applies to NGOs that are run by exiles in other or achieve the democratization of their country from abroad and fight for human rights. No more money is allowed to the government of dictatorial countries. In the Western democracies, there are tons of organizations described as NGO with only one task, namely to weaken the democracies. Their organizations are funded by the dictatorship of the world. These NGOs should not receive any special recognition by being invited to official events. We therefore recommend for forming a commission with the task of collecting and supporting the NGOs that are active for human rights and democracy. In the same step, the organization can be funded that work for the destabilization of democracies and are supported by the dictatorship of this world in order to prevent their activities. The democratic country must remain strong and defend themselves against attack on freedom. We ask the President of the United States, Mr. Joe Biden, not to allow patriotism and dictatorial countries like China, Vietnam, or Russia to increase their influence over Laos. Only the influence of the USA and that of democratic country can change Laos to a democracy and fact, and such deprive the dictatorial country of an important basis of their power. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Bounthhom, so much for that overview and sharing the importance of what is happening in Laos and why we must stand together in solidarity around the world. I now would like to hand it to Australia, and it's great to feature Peng. Of course, that's important because Australia, along with the United States, just announced a diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics in China. So that was very bold, but also Australia hosts a dialogue, a bilateral dialogue with Laos. And we just participated in that event last month. So I would now hand it over to my colleague Peng to be able to share and talk about other important issues and features of freedom and democracy.
Thank you, Dr. Joshua Cooper. I'm speaking to you all from Canberra, the capital city of Australia. Welcome to Joe Biden Summit on Democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, I am an Australian citizen and a diaspora among millions of diasporas from Laos, dispersed and spread all over the world in many democratic countries, including countries not so democratic like Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, and as far as Brazil. I am here to talk to you about the Marxism-Leninism government Laopedia, Lao People's Republic Democratic Laopedia, under control by these three major puppeteers, China, Russia, and Vietnam, since the 2nd of December 1975. On the 2nd of December, the Laopedia government celebrate their victory day. We protest this very same day as the doomsday, for we have lost lives up to 62,000 lives from the royalist government people. The 18th of July 1977, Lao-Vietnamese Treaty of Friendship of 25 years only gave Vietnam over control of Laos. Signed by Kai Son Phomvihan, or Vietnamese name Nguyen Kai Song, a Vietnamese-born Lao Prime Minister, and the Vietnamese Prime Minister Pham Van Dong. China and Russia came into Laos to play their multilateral socialist in partnership role in 1991. After the Sino-Vietnamese conflict in 1979 to 1991, which both countries claimed victorious, but many thousands of men killed on both sides. The aggressive invasion of China, Russia, and Vietnam, including Thailand at the moment, must be stopped before Laos will become Tibet #2. We are 110 democratic nationals, including US, must help Lao people to have their voice heard. Stop communism in Laos. The aggressive invasion of these puppeteers oppress the Lao people of their human rights and their rights to live in their land. Lao population of 7.4 million people, GDP rank 112 in the world, with the debt ratio to GDP of 68%, about 12 billion US dollars, with corruption index of 14.42% of GDP. The so-called socialist multilateral marketing system of turning Lao natural resources into capital must be stopped. Timber logging projects legally and illegally are no good for the economy of Laos because of corruption. Mining projects deals, which ended up the corruptive government official to their hands. The dams projects are the problems of the people in this place and yearly flooding for lack of transparency and accountability in proper planning. The so-called battery for Asia in building dams to 100 dams by 2030 must be stopped. The acquisition of national lands for special economic zones and for agriculture are no good for the economy, for there are plenty of illegal activities with money laundering in the casino of Borgel and Bounthone. For example, drugs and prostitution are all over Laos. Illegal dumping of poisonous or toxic chemicals in sewage and in the farms are out of hand. The question is China friend or foe to Laos? The debt traps diplomacy, one belt, one road, or the EMU Lansang China-Laos Railway of debt trap of 6.8 billion to Laos. No good for Laos. With China, the Wuhan virus, the South China Sea, the East China Sea, Hong Kong, Taiwan. The Quad is the problem for China. The AUKUS is a problem for China. Now Laos, what else? A regime with the Red Emperor for world domination? China must be out of Laos, Russia out of Laos, and Vietnam out of Laos. Democracy in Laos. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peng, for sharing that perspective from Canberra. And thank you also so much for participating in the discussion with the government of Australia and the bilateral dialogue. Both are very, very important and crucial as we go forward. Our next important person that we will speak to will be coming to us from France. Liberté, égalité, and fraternité.
Yeah.
Very important to be hearing from our leader on that important point. Please share with us, Bounthone, Chantha, exactly what's going on in France. And of course, it's a very important place to be celebrating the spirit of democracy, of course, with all of the actions that have taken place, as well as the strong leadership France has been showing on human rights.
Okay.
S'il vous plaît.
Okay, everybody. Bonsoir from Paris, Dr. Cooper. It has been a great pleasure for me to be among you today at this event to participate to Summit for Democracy. I am Bounthhom Chantha, ladies and gentlemen. Vice President of Alliance for Democracy in Laos, Frank Chantha, on behalf of President Sompet Patanu. Also, our thanks goes out to President Joe Biden and to Alliance countries for democracy around the world, and also to the organization around the world. To simplify, Professor Cooper, I have a couple of concerns about corruption and land grabbing in Lao PDR. So, reading out the Communist Lao Party new 5-year national socio-economic development, plan 2021-2025, it was all too clear that the essence of the plan is that nothing will really change. For the most part, the new 5-year is the same as the old one. Nearly appointed Prime Minister of Laos, Pankam might be ready to embark on the course of change. You know, he made a lot of noise about tackling endemic corruption in front of the MP at National Assembly. Meanwhile, corruption continues apace, you know. Please, Dr. Bounthhom, here, Dr. Bounthhom, please, on the screen, the table to explain, okay, now here on the table, corruption index 2020, and you have Laos score 29. It means highly corrupt. And the rank 134 out of 180 countries on the world. And the third most corrupted in the Asian bloc, following Cambodia and Myanmar. You know, corruption begins with minor officials and extend to higher level of government. And the next photo, please, on the screen, Dr. Bounthhom. The next photo about the official, ex-official of the Lao PDR. Okay, you can see on the screen here, 2 luxurious houses of the ex-Prime Minister Chanthalavong and former Deputy Prime Minister Souvannasane. All 2 live, you know, Dr. Cook, in opulence, you know. And here, down below, you can see the gold mine and the block of the gold run to the corruption. The 2 personalities became, obviously, went off in Lao society. However, they are certainly over official or the official at the top of the state, whereas the majority of rural provinces are poor. 2 figures, Professor Cooper, 2 figures, $5 per day for living, and more than 200,000 people with harsh condition of life, according to the World Bank report. Horrible kind of latent sickness, you know, because the pandemic, COVID-19, and the lack of the rule of the law, and the lack of an independent, impartial judiciary lead to pronounce corruption and inhibit legal transformation in Lao PDR. In addition, exacerbate the violation of human rights, unfortunately. So, impossibility to criticize the system, any dissent, tolerate. We know so well, Professor Cooper, the case, December 2011, Sombat Somphone disappeared. And in 2016, the three bloggers, Mr. Pim Mason, Mrs. Lodkam, and Mr. Sukan Chaita, sentenced in prison for a long time, 16 years, 20 years, and 20 years, you know. A decade of efforts and action to modernize Lao economy, said very recently Lao government with mega project. Let's talk about that. You know, we have hydropower dam, then necessary, agriculture sector, mining, and the so-called leading project, railway construction lead to land grab. This project how to be inefficient and impact the livelihood of the population already vulnerable. Everybody knows about the consequences. Population possibly displaced and relocated. As you can see in the photo, no rise to protest. Compensation always unfair, sometimes without it. My question, you know, how can you do to make a living on the top of the mountain? You can see in the photo here. The Laotians are always in, excuse me, as you see on the photo, land compensation to Laotians are always inferior quality. So difficulty for them to manufacture their own product and to ensure their own economic independence and to have sustainable path for a better life. Moreover, there are environmental degradation. Example that mentioned Mr. Peng Sacksady earlier, poisoning soil and river by the use of pesticides. In banana plantation, also the use of chemical in mining industry causing illness when being exposed. Nowadays, these overlooked problems remain as truths. You know, I would like before my conclusion, Professor Cook, to point out the last event. As you can see on the photo, please, Dr. Bounthone, the police came over to displace 26 families in the Souvannasane district. In the Souvannasane district, as you can see here, you know, population, the men hold kind of placard, and you can read on it, justice for 36 families, you know, and the demonstrators are very determined to file the complaint to the Court of the Justice of the State. The case withdrawn, unfortunately. 6 families accept the compensation, but not paid again. 2,000, not 2,000, 200,000 baht on instead of 1 million baht. And 30 families currently hold out again in the place. And we keep an eye on this. In any rate, our recommendation to conclude. First, clear, transparent, and democratic control on the fight against corruption. And 2, the fight anti-corruption must be carried out by independent institutions and must not be influenced by the state. 3, stop the land credit and mega project right now. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that and your voice sharing from what's happening in France. I know it's also, you brought up a very important date. On top of course, tomorrow being International Human Rights Day, of course, today is significant, not only because it's the Summit for Democracy, but it's a really important issue of International Day Against Corruption. The world has declared this an International Day Against Corruption, and we know it's very difficult to have a democracy if corruption is running rampant. And the examples you shared show why really the corruption is really siphoning off the hope of civil society in Laos, especially when you can see the large disparity between the ruling regime and the everyday people. That's one of the important aspects. Also, your examples showing many environmental pictures reminds us of being at the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change meeting just last month in Glasgow, Scotland. And the big issue there, of course, is the world's hoping to make sure that we don't have too much carbon. And we know trees and forests are very important. Your examples there of deforestation are crucial. And it's only due to corruption where other countries then come in to Laos and actually contribute to deforestation and destroy the natural environment. We know there was 70% of the land was covered with forests at the time of the current regime taking over. And now, unfortunately, we know it's below 40%. So thank you so much for raising that issue of corruption. I now hand it over to our colleague in Canada. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Joshua Cooper. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kambane Anonthisen, the President of Alliance for Democracy in Laos, chapter of Canada. I strongly support the Summit for Democracy. I am going to talk about Laos government and how they violate the human rights by allowing the foreign investors such as China and Vietnam to build the hydroelectric dams, cut the trees, and dig the mines in Laos. Laos government is dictatorship, communist, and outlaw government. There is only one political party in Laos, like the Communist Party. Laos government was elected and formed by Indochina Communist Central Committee in Hanoi, Vietnam, not voted by Lao population. Next, I'm going to talk about, number 1 is about building the hydroelectric dams project. Dr. Bounthhom, would please show the screen, please. Yeah, would you please look at the screen? That Dr. Bounthhom will show up. That's the dam collapsed and flooded in Attapeu province. The Chien Mno and Chet Pien collapsed. Lao government has allowed foreign investors, mainly from China, Vietnam, and Thailand, to build the hydroelectric dams, up to 100 dams by the year 2030. According to the report, now there are 86 hydropower plants in operation. On July 23rd, 2018, Sapien Senamnoi Dam collapsed in Attapeu province. 19 villages were flooded. The report said more than 13,000 villagers have been affected. Hundreds were missing and 40 dead. The dams destroyed the nature and lives. They only make benefits to the foreign investors and Lao government officials from corruption. The dams make Lao ordinary people no place to live and no land for farming. They are poorer and poorer. Look at the screen there. One lady is crying with her children there. But Lao government officials are richer and richer. Secondly, I have to talk about deforestation project, Dr. Bounthhom. Yeah, would you please look at the photos of the son of Mr. Young. Look at the photo that them projected. Okay, thank you, doctor. In the past few years, international NGOs repeatedly reported about illegal logging in Laos. Some time ago, the EIA, based in London, wrote a particularly revealing report about the rainforest in Laos is disappeared at an alarming rate. The independent experts fear that there will soon be no more forest in Laos. Not only EIA, but also Global Witness has been investigated in recent years that Vietnamese companies are involved in deforestation, which is concentrated in east and south area of Laos. The Vietnamese company are primarily responsible for overexploitation. Next is the mining project. Number 3. Historic records from the United States Geographical Survey, USGS. Lao PDR has 208 identified mines in digging. The most commonly listed primary commodified in Lao mines are gold, lead, and copper. Lao has 4 project mines and 223 mines in production at the time the data was entered into USGS records. The gold mines in operation are Phu Sepon, Phu Beer, Phu Kham, and Attapeu gold mines. A lot of gold are produced every day, but Lao people are still poor, and Lao government has a lot of debts. Mining also destroyed, a lot of nature and life. Yeah, I would like to look at the screen there. That is the son of Mr. Chitadon. is selling the gold and selling the diamonds. And look at the top of the mountain, the Sepon gold mines. They are digging. A lot of destruction about the people. So where's no, okay, just a minute, sorry about it. A lot of gold are produced every day, but the people are poor and the government has a lot of debts. Sorry. Mining also destroyed a lot of nature and life. The toxic chemical waste from mining plants poison the fish, animals, and human beings. The hydroelectric dams and mining are dangerous to the villagers' life, the animals, and properties. Before the government allowed the foreign investors do these projects, they did not tell and discuss with the villagers in those areas. They only knew when the police came and forced them and their families to move out and live in different locations. Some of them were forced to move and live on top of the mountains. In Laos, there is no democracy and no human rights. Laotians have no right to talk, no right to complain and criticize the government. If they did, they would get big trouble, like they were captured, jailed. Some of them were disappeared. Lao government officials got a lot of money from foreign investors, but they put their own in their own pockets. Sorry, they only pay back to the villagers a little, not adequate. It was the same when Lao government received the money from the foreign aid. The villagers affected by Sapien Sianamnoi collapsed. Lao government paid them a little, and the government officials corrupt the rest. Recommendation: Lao government must stop deforestation and dam project. Secondly, Lao government must improve mining project to make better benefits and to help Lao population and to pay the debts. They must, third, they must keep the toxic chemical waste in safe place and safe container. Thank you for your attention. I pass to Mr. Chantha Cooper. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and connecting all of the dots together that we must have to ensure democracy. I'll now hand it to our final speaker as we're nearing the closing of the program, from the United States, the host of the first Summit for Democracy, where we're trying to bring together the different countries, but more importantly, the civil society, to make a difference and guarantee democracy to all. Final speaker from the US.
Thank you, Mr. Joshua Cooper. Ladies and gentlemen, dear participants in the Democracy Forum. My name is Khamphene Souvannasane. I am the president of the Alliance for Democracy in Laos, chapter of USA. My speech today will be about illegal drugs and prostitution. The Laos People Democratic Republic, as a single-party communist state, it's by its very nature resistant to transparency and accountability. Decision-making authority is centralized and absent an opposition party on any effective checks on the Communist Party power. Senior leaders generally do as they please. Nepotism is rampant. Ironically, a number of rich and powerful families in the pre-1975 monarchy have continued to thrive under communism. There is strong resistance to audit system, and many local governments have financial control on expenditure, but not on revenues, creating ample opportunity for diversion of public funds, since the judiciary in Laos is also under the control of the state and the party. A lack of persecution of corrupt officials can be observed here as well. In general, there is no sense among party officials that is anything significant wrong with corruption, though a few stalwarts still hold the specialist ideal of their youth. Drugs, geographically located in the heart of the Golden Triangle, Laos is one of the main producers of opium and represents one of the central hubs for international drug trafficking on the world market. Laos is the third largest opium producing country after Afghanistan and Myanmar. As the production of drugs in Laos increased, so did domestic consumption. In addition to opium and heroin, amphetamine and adhesive are increasingly being misused. A new plague is the so-called yaba, sometimes also called shabu, which is produced in pill form in Golden Triangle of Laos. Thailand and Myanmar, yaba can be made relatively easily from home remedies like salt, cough syrup, lithium, and cleaning products at low cost, and is gradually overtaking other designer drugs like ecstasy. Yaba currently mainly a problem for locals, but foreigner visitors also often confronted with it. The law in Laos against illicit drug trafficking are very strict, but they are rarely implemented in reality. On the one hand, that is due to corruption in which police officers are obliged to look away. But this also due to the fact that high members of the power apparatus are also reinforced in the drug trade. Here too, the population has no right to complain about what has happened. The government of the Lao PDR announced that the fight against drug abuse and drug crime is successful, but in fact, our observers noticed that the drug problem in Laos is still rising. People report to the ADL that it's possible to buy methamphetamines like sweets on the street, like you see on the pictures. Another point in the Lao PDR is the never-ending human trafficking, especially the forced prostitute. We can observe that there is a change in that item. In the past, Thailand has been the hotspot for human trafficking and forced prostitution with young people from Laos. Now, the situation has changed. China come more and more into the focus of this criminal content. Young people are lured with the promise on well-being paid workplaces to China. One day, many of these young people come to work, slaves or involuntarily end up in prostitution. We welcome the decision of the US government to combat the criminal machination around the King Roman Casino in the province of Bogel. Our reports, we have reported to the UN and the USA for years, now being confirmed again. The casino is a transshipment center for money laundering, human and drug trafficking. Now let's talk about prostitution. Prostitution in Laos has meanwhile assumed large proportion. The UNAIDS estimate that there are around 13,000 prostitutes in Laos and another 100,000. It is estimated we'll have to operate their businesses in the neighboring country of Thailand and China. These prostitutes working abroad are often lured into legal jobs with false promises or even forcibly abducted. The fight against illegal prostitution is limited to the petty criminal. Large criminal synods are spare. The government does not have any effective aid program for these people. The victims of these criminal machinations are often left to fend for themselves. Our appeals are therefore clear and precise. Number one, clear, transparent, and democratic control on the fight against corruption. Number two, the fight against corruption must be carried out by independent institutions and must not be influenced by the state. Number three, international control by UN and in the fight against crime and illegal prostitution. Number four, aid projects for rehabilitation of former drug users and dropouts from the prostitution swamp. Number five, approval of international and independent aid organizations to help drug addicts and illegal prostitutes. More help instead of punishment for the victims. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. And that really does bring us to the conclusion of our 1-hour Summit for Democracy side event. I appreciate everyone raising all of their points. Of course, we also know one of the most important issues of why December 9th is so important is it's also the Convention Against Genocide. And many people believe in Laos that there's at least a cultural genocide taking place where the people of Laos are not able to flourish, where government is really denying them their basic existence on every element, language, culture, spiritual perspective, and of course that quest and desire for freedom and democracy, which has been seen throughout the history of Laos. I also would like to thank everyone for joining us at this Democracy Summit, because it was crucial to be able to make sure that the ASEAN community is featured prominently and that the people of Southeast Asia are able to share their dreams and desires for a more democratic future in their country. And so we, of course, know throughout a lot of the human rights work, the way to measure democracy, of how we can say a country is democratic, is human rights. And many of the points you raised throughout the day look at the violations of human rights, that people are not allowed to have freedom of thought, not allowed to exercise their freedom of speech, not allowed to assemble, not allowed to stand up against wrongs that are taking place in their communities. And so all of this is absolutely important as we move going forward. And these are just 2 days that the world is focusing on democracy and human rights, but we know we must concentrate and coordinate campaigns throughout the year. The first actions taking place in 2022 will be ECOSOC. That's where we see Laos trying to deny those principles of democracy and participation in the global sphere. And we'll be there to make sure that ADL pushes for attaining ECOSOC status and being able to participate as an official observer at UN meetings. We'll also continue, of course, on many different fronts, but I'd like to thank all of our speakers for joining us today. And thank you all for participating in the Summit for Democracy and sharing your perspectives from around the world. And while the diaspora exists on every continent, it's exciting to see the commitment for democracy in Laos today. Thank you so much. Aloha.
Thank you,
Joshua.
Dr.
welcome.
Cooper.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.